Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network, for the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews. Press 1. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for another Anatomy of a Movie. This week on Slab, Sicario. Let's dissect. I'm John Comerford, joining Marisa Serafini.
Hello, everyone.
And Demetri Panos.
Hello, movie fans. I believe it's Sicario.
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 Yeah, if you're saying it with a Latino accent.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's Sicario. So, I'm trying to reach all audiences.
There you go.
So we'll do it both ways. All right, so Sicario.
Soundtrack.
Yeah, there's that soundtrack. We'll talk that later. But let's talk right now overall impressions of the movie. What was your initial thoughts?
I remember walking out of the film. The two words that immediately came to mind was "whoa" and "wow."
Whoa and wow.
All in very positive aspects. I really liked it, and having such a serious type of movie in this point of the year, it left me emotionally, in a way, kind of distraught, but knowing that stuff like this really actually do occur in real life, and this is still an ongoing problem, it makes me feel like, what can we do in the world to help alleviate this? And seeing their process of trying to control the drug cartel world, it's a messy business. But watching it, it's so intriguing, and I think this film really did a great job of just opening our eyes to that.
Demetri.
Intriguing, intense would be a word that I would use to describe this movie. I think this is a strong, cop type of drama. I think it's masterfully handled by Denis Villeneuve. I think as a director, a very strong guy. Of course, you've got Roger Deakins doing the cinematography, so this movie looks spectacular. And again, you have some really solid performances. Emily Blunt was fantastic. Benicio del Toro is a presence. Josh Brolin was great to watch. I think there were some narrative missteps. As powerful, as strong as this movie is, I'm not entirely sure. I went in hearing all these fantastic praises about this movie, and while some of them are deserved, to me, anyways, there were a couple of narrative missteps that I was like, why is nobody talking about this? How does this make it that great of a movie? I think it's really good. And it's very powerful. It leaves you you walk out of the theater. Whoa, yeah, this isn't a knee slapper, folks.
This is not a feel good movie.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a feel good movie. Yeah. It is masterfully handled as far as I think its violence was concerned or is concerned. I don't think that it didn't glorify it in any way. It didn't in a sense, it wasn't like a blood fest, albeit it was an intense, violent movie. But I thought it was handled very, very well in the way that it was directed and paced, and the music. We'll talk about that. How about you, John?
I thought it was a good movie. I didn't think it was a great movie. I have, my own issues with the narrative. There's so much of it to like, and then there are the few things that it was you had so much going and so much done well, and then you let that happen, and things like that was just driving me crazy. I didn't think it was paced well. I mean, for the most part it was, but then I also thought, why are we spending so much time doing this? And, because I get it, let's move on. Why are we, that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's one of those, it's difficult. I had other people telling me that, friends that I really trusted, loved it, thought it was amazing. And I normally try to go on my own, sabbatical and hiatus or whatever, media shutdown. I don't want to. If I'm going to go see a movie, I don't want to know anything about it because I just want it to occur and happen in an event to me. And I got thwarted by that because those things set me up a little. I think they set me up too much. I think I listened to it and I go, okay, this is going to be a great movie-going experience. And when it didn't hit that, I was like, wow, I don't know what they saw that I didn't see.
I'm sort of the same way. Like, I felt like I had people telling me, and reviews as well, telling me that this is an amazing movie and such. And albeit powerful and strong, it sort of kind of missed from being amazing, although I do recognize the strengths of this movie. And again, I think for me, the way that it was directed, the way that it was shot, Emily Blunt's performance to me was one of the best of her career. I thought she was fantastic. In fact, I think not enough is being said about it. I think more is a little bit being said about Benicio, which I've got no qualms of, albeit he was a presence. He didn't really to do.
I think that was the point of that, is that with his, he didn't say much and cut a lot of the dialogue, but because of that presence and that mysterious quality of who he is and what's he up to, that lends itself. And to a large degree, he's the lead. He's pushing the energy. We're not even pushing her story. She's in effect there for his story.
But is that true? Because again, and again, we can go into this. That to me was one of the problems of this movie, because we open up on Emily Blunt's character. And we
kind of shift, and you know, they just choose a different structure than we would normally see in an American movie. We would see we have the lead, and the lead would have would go through these trials and tribulations and come through at the end. And they switched for whatever reason. They chose to do it differently, the writer and the director. And I think in some ways it's successful, in some ways it's not as successful for me. I mean, because it for me it ultimately it feels somewhat unsatisfying and unfulfilling, and that doesn't mean I'm not saying that I want her to go figure it all out and fix the drug war. I'm not saying that, but ultimately it was unsatisfying and unfulfilling that character didn't have an arc that for me was interesting, compelling. It left me going, oh, okay.
I did. I mean, I did find that she, by the end of the movie, that her eyes were opened to a large extent, and that things changed within
for me,
her.
That's one of the missteps that I made. It's like, she's in the business. How does she not know this?
No, she's not in the business, actually. And the movie makes a great point of that.
She volunteered to be a part of it.
She was not in that business. She even says.
What I mean is, she's in law enforcement.
Yeah, but
she's rousting these people. She's the first thing we see. She's in a raid to get these people.
No, she was part of the kidnapping unit. She was.
I get that. I know that she's not a DEA or drug. Right. But if you're in law enforcement, you know about the cartels.
Not to the extent of finding bodies in the wall. Like the movie made a distinction.
And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think that's a character that is so horribly naive that's unbelievable for me. I lived in El Paso for years. I haven't lived there. I still have family there, so I'm aware of all these things. And the fact that she didn't know what the name Medellin was, I'm going, if you're in law enforcement, how do you not know Medellin? I know Medellin.
Yeah, I don't know Medellin.
I don't know Medellin.
I wouldn't expect you to, but if you're in law enforcement, the Medellin cartels, of Colombia, of course.
I can understand your argument, especially the area she actually worked in. Being in, she started off in Arizona.
That's my point, close to the border.
The environmental area, she should be aware of that. Okay. So I understand
that part I just didn't buy from the outset. I went, wait a minute, she doesn't know this kind of stuff goes on?
Was this the narrative thing?
That's one of the narrative things.
That's one of, okay, all right.
Crazy. It's like, I just didn't believe that character would be that naive. She is sharp.
Clearly. No, she's sharp in her position, and she does go and said,
if you live on the border, this is if you go.
I think it's a good point.
When I visit my family in El Paso, you hear all of the stories.
Yeah, see, I haven't.
It's not. The people. And I'm not in law enforcement, and I know those stories. So how could somebody who lives down there, works down there in law enforcement, and not know this stuff?
That's a good point. I didn't I've seen. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that watching the movie. I didn't. And again, to me, I felt well, I did feel
Mm-hmm.
that the movie had set up that this was not her. You know, she was a kidnap. She was in the kidnap thing, and they were going on a tip that there were some people.
I think you're right. I think they
Yeah.
did that really well. I just thought it would have been smarter
Yeah.
for her to be aware of it,
Yeah.
but not know the depth and breadth of it,
Right.
because then she still would have been in the labyrinthian Dante's hell and
Sure.
for all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
That still would have been there, but to me, they just made her too naive from the beginning, and then at the end when she doesn't know Medellin, I'm just going, how stupid are you going to make her?
No, okay.
For me, that's
Okay.
what it made
No,
her
and-
But
not
you
and
should have
seem
given
smart.
her more credit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
she was not a dumb chick.
No,
Yeah.
no, she wasn't. And that was one of the things that I actually sort of appreciated about this movie, because it was a strong female role.
Yes, it was great.
To have. And
That's why
again,
it just didn't
it's not
make
going to
sense.
change my opinion
Yeah.
on I thought her performance was really good.
I think that's what bothered me too, because like, first of all, I love Emily Blunt, and she gives a great performance every time, and that's what was frustrating while watching this. She was there for the emotional balance that this film needed, and not so much. I mean, everyone's saying that she was a strong character. Yes, she was. Granted, she wasn't given enough credit, but she was there for the emotional support that usually women give for performances in a film. But for character-wise, she wasn't as strong as I was hoping for her to be.
Really, because the other thing that I'm going to mention too is, and this happens within the first quarter or so of the movie, is that, you know, she is very It was pegged that she was good at her job for kidnapping, investigation, and extraction.
She has strong instincts.
Right, strong
So-
instincts.
Right.
And
Tacticals.
she has a very clear moral compass as to what's right, what's wrong. So, you know, upon that, the extraction from Juarez,
Right.
coming over the border, the shootout and whatnot, that's when she's like,
Wait, what are we doing?
What
doing?
am I doing? Like, that is
well,
illegal.
her spidey
And
senses
there's a
are up
great-
even before that, because, you know, she has, you know, the fact that they say, well, so we're going to El Paso? Well, kind of, you know, and then
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
there you got to know. El Paso's
They're
the
not.
border, right? You know,
Right.
that, okay, you're not going to El Paso. You're
Yeah,
going to go
and-
across the border.
And yeah, and I just felt that, like, that scene, and she realizes
Right.
that she was in way over her head.
Yeah.
And I think from the moment at the beginning of that movie, when and again, a very intense scene,
In the
opening
boardroom
shot.
sort of? Oh, the intense,
No,
okay.
the opening shot of that movie where they're coming up into that little neighborhood where
Oh,
they're going to
yeah.
come into the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A very intense
Cameras
scene.
in the vehicle. And
Yeah. Very.
It was good. It was
and
great.
It's very well
Again,
filmed.
lots of things to like in this movie.
Cinematography.
Lots of things to like.
And you know, then, and again, what I really loved about her character, she is what they call, she's the first one through the door.
Yeah.
She's the point. She's first through the door. You know, and then she goes into that room. That guy was just waiting there with a shotgun, barely misses her, goes, and then hence our story begins,
Yeah.
because her partner, you know, it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
It's
here.
where they-
And then they also make it a point where her character says, those weren't the people that I was looking for.
No.
Like, I don't even
Yeah.
know who these
Yeah.
are. And that led into
Yeah.
the much bigger story going on. So,
Definitely set the tone for the film,
Right.
especially in the first 5 to 10 minutes. That was as gruesome as that was. It let the audience know there's going to be a lot of violence and a lot of death into it.
Right.
And granted,
Well, it's called Sicario.
yeah,
Sicario.
true,
Sicario.
true. But I do
So-
have to admit, you know, while watching this, like I'm also eating my Taco Bell that I snuck into the theater. Like, okay, yeah, I'm done with this.
Well.
In the first 10 minutes of the movie, I'm like, all right, let's set this
so
aside.
yeah, so, you know, character, and again, this is sort of like a narrative that I sort of kind of enjoy on a personal level, is putting a character who's supposed to be strong, well versed at what they do, but then they end up being put into a situation that's way over their
Yeah.
heads that they do not
Yeah,
understand.
it's a classic
But after
device.
listening to you, you make grand sense about living on a border town or El Paso or something, because I didn't think of it that way. But it adds a different layer for me to now think about. So I understand, and it makes sense. It makes great sense, and I hope that the audience that
But
I hope
I
they
don't
pick
know
up
that most
something.
people. I don't know that most people would be aware of it. But for me, it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
It just seemed like a
they
misstep.
did
It's like
also-
you could have made her just
Because she
well,
lived
much
there
more
too.
layered and
You're right.
textured.
No,
No, but they
you're
did
right.
also at the beginning of the film mention that she was still new to that area. That this was only her 5th raid that she's done. So
That's true.
she in a way could have just started to move there.
At the get-go, and I'm going, okay, I have to put it aside. Let's just take her as she is.
Sure.
But for me, it would have been much more interesting to have somebody who kind of knows what's going on.
Right.
You're still not going to, because I don't deal in that every day, but I know it's there.
Right.
But then my eyes get awakened, they're open to this. And I think that would have been just as effective and much more interesting, because then there's somebody who's blindly not paying attention, kind of like the American public. There's the metaphor of what's happening across the way.
Yeah.
But so it's just harder to believe that somebody. Anyway, so I made that point, and we're moving on from that.
No, but it's a good point. I think it's one thing that I honestly like, because sometimes we will disagree.
Yeah.
And we end up agreeing to disagree. But now, in all honesty, you brought that to light, and I think it's a very valid point, and I think it's great it was great for me, and I think it's good. It's a good plot point narrative for our audience as well.
So let's. But what I love is the fact that it was a female lead, first of all, and I think the story is widely reported that there was somebody, financier, offered the creators, or it was either the writer or the producers, I can't remember who, offered them a lot of money if they would make the lead a male rather than a female, and the writer, everybody said
Taylor Sheridan.
Taylor Sheridan. No,
They said they would up the budget.
Yeah, they would up the budget, and I love that they didn't, because I thought that was, to me, a great part of this script was that, especially every time she walked into the room and all these Delta Force guys are, and all these guys, I'm going, this is great, because it's Silence of the Lambs in a sense.
I agree.
So those kinds of things, it's already there's so much rich in that aura, in that world.
I'm glad you mentioned Silence of the Lambs, because I was thinking Emily Blunt would make a very good Clarice Starling. I felt, because it almost had sort of kind of those aspects to it. But yeah, I think it was fantastic having Emily Blunt there, and having a female
how much
character.
better way to set out that she's an outsider.
Right.
Yeah, I think they really hit the nail on the head with that. My problem was, love the character, but the fact that she had all these questions, she was, in a way, the voice of the audience.
Yeah,
she was asking
definitely
what we were asking.
Yeah.
But her character wasn't strong enough to actually ask those questions herself.
I wasn't kidding, though. I think, to a large degree, her character was not just the audience, but the American public, who's just turning a blind eye and doesn't want to know what's going on. And then at the end, throws up their arms, goes, what can I do? This,
Right.
I'm not, I want to have a strict moral code, and I want to live by the rule of law and everything, but that doesn't seem to work here, so I don't know what to do.
Yeah, they're going off, but...
Yeah. So, but I love that aspect of it. I'm glad it was a female lead in this, and her trying to navigate this world where the moral code of her counterparts a little bit ambiguous. They whatever works, they don't have any problem crossing any lines, and they're sin eaters to a large degree, which we've seen in many different kinds of movies and stuff. And as characters are drawn, they're wonderfully useful in these things, because you get to really blur the line of what's morality, what's fair, what's right, what's wrong, what's lawful, all that kind of stuff.
And this is where I think, too, that Denis really, taking from his movie Prisoners, which again is another one of those movies which blurs the line as to what a moral compass is. I would say that at the end of Prisoners, I really did feel like that was a movie I said, I don't need to revisit this. I feel like I need a shower. But again, what he is able to accomplish is great direction in which it's not flashy. He captures his shots. He doesn't really necessarily focus on violence, and even more importantly, he is able to bring out some fantastic performances, whether you're watching Hugh Jackman. Jake Gyllenhaal in Prisoners is amazing, one of his best performances. And in this movie, we get, Emily Blunt, we get Josh Brolin, I thought was great. I said Benicio del Toro was a presence in this movie. Everybody was doing like a really I thought
Great
he really, he really knows how to direct his cast.
And I
get
he either
excellent
directs them
performances
well
out of
or
him.
lets them go. I don't know which one it is, but whichever way it works, and congratulations to him. For
I think
doing
it's
so.
collaborative.
Yeah, and I think it's in a way this movie, in a way for the pacing, it was very slow paced. It had enough time for the actors to breathe and actually build up to the performance or the one scene or for each of these characters to have their moments.
Yeah, they did. My problems with it were on the scenes when we're showing the kid rolling the orange from this angle, then from that angle, then from this angle.
Well, that was one of the narrative things. But before we go into narrative too, though, I do want to talk about, like, because you said, geez, I wonder how he may work. And again, I'm not in the gentleman's mind, but there is a great story there. You had mentioned it up top where there was a lot more dialogue with Benicio's character, in which he explained more, he gave more background to the story.
Got a lot of X-Files, apparently.
And talking with the director, he said, what if we take a lot of this out?
90% of it.
Right. And I think as a director, he had the choice. He could have said no, or let's... But he went with that feeling, and I feel that he made, it was a good. In a sense, it was a very good decision.
I thought it was great. It really
yeah.
blurred the lines of who this guy is.
Yeah.
I like that he saved her life and then was about to kill her at the end. I mean, it's like, what, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? He's doing it for his family, but he's not. I mean, that part of it was terrific. And I thought the fact that they pulled away on his dialogue was great because it really left him mysterious, and you really had to decide for yourself. Do we want to be working with somebody like this, or do we have to in order to deal with this problem that we have?
I think,
I thought it leaves those questions up for
which is great. Which is going to lead me to something else. I'm going to just take a little bit of a tangent here because one of the things that sort of cheapens this movie to me now is that shortly after this movie was in release, Lionsgate came out and said they're going to do a sequel. They're going to make a sequel to it. And I watched this movie and I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
You can't do
like what
this
movie stands alone just perfectly. It opens up to great discussion, about how, what is Benicio del Toro's character about? I mean, that is really good cinema when you leave a little bit of that mystery there and you can talk. And now if you make a sequel and you start answering all of those questions, who cares at this point? Like, why are you going to franchise?
But we want to see Emily Blunt.
Toughen up. I don't know.
But it sort of cheapens.
It does.
It sort of cheapens what is very strong and good about this movie. Like, I don't need to go back into this world again. I think that I will watch this movie
I want to see
again.
him kick ass all over the Mexican cartels.
Right. I want to see him be James Bond more like. I mean.
And have
off the sequel, they mentioned, Taylor Sheridan, the writer, mentioned that he was in talks of already planning and developing the second one back in the spring, but he didn't really think it was possible until now this movie is becoming as successful as it is.
Possible.
And it's like, now it's possible. It's like, now we can put this into
We'll talk
effect.
about money, I guess, a little bit later on, but am I the only one who feels that way? Like,
they
after
shouldn't do a
watching this
sequel.
movie?
They should not do a sequel.
I don't know. I guess I'm a little cynical because it's. I agree with you, but I also go, it's expected because this one's it's doing well and it was inexpensive to make, comparatively speaking. Sure, why not?
All right, but since you said that, okay. I mean, all right. So there's a $30 million budget, estimated $30 million. That goes up to estimated 58 with the hard drives, advertising, and whatnot, right? So, what Lionsgate did that was very interesting on this is they treated it like a highbrow of a movie.
Right.
They gave it a limited release, which was October 2nd. They opened it up in 6 theaters. They got a very good high screen average, and then
it's getting great buzz.
It's got really good buzz, really good reviews. I believe it was the last I checked, Rotten Tomatoes was 93%. The cinema score, which is for this kind of a movie,
I know,
pretty solid, right? And then it goes wide, so it goes from 6 theaters to 2,620 theaters, and it comes in at number 3. So, but right now its domestic gross is roughly, let's say, about $20 million. you know, as of today. Its foreign and then its worldwide is 27 million. So I don't know. Is this the kind of movie like it's going to come back? Is it going to do 70 million, 60 million, enough to make a sequel? I mean,
well,
I think it
depends on how.
is it counting your
the
chickens
budget.
before they hatch? I mean,
I think the problem is, like, if they were to do a sequel, it's granted the content that they're talking about is really hard to process just the first time. Like drug cartels.
Well, here's the thing.
I mean that. It's
No,
just like, this
you're
was
right,
a very
though.
intense movie.
But here's the thing.
to do
Let's say we're
another
in the
one.
writer's room and they say, yeah, we're going to do a sequel. You have a lot to work with. You have the Mexican cartel, so we've already got that. You got a lone Sicario who's
Yeah, we got the Colombian cartel.
who's
part of the
bent on revenge, and who knows what else.
But what did he do? What did he kill the wrong family?
No.
Whoops.
He killed that.
I killed
There wasn't
the
just.
wrong family.
There's not just one person involved. So,
But he was the head guy.
sure, he was the head
responsible.
guy, or at least as far as we know. We don't know if there are others behind this in the government that helped or whatever. We don't know any of that.
Sure.
So what I'm saying is, you should have the drug cartels. It could maybe there are other cartels involved because they got together to get rid of the Medellins.
Right.
I don't know. There are government people involved clearly because they have people on the payroll. So there's that to kill. And is he doing it just to avenge his family, or is he doing to reestablish the Medellin cartel? I'm in the room. I'm just saying
I get
you
it,
have a
but
lot
that-
to work
But
with.
then that just turns into, you know, a revenge
does.
movie, which this
does.
movie
In a
sort
way
of
it was.
turned into.
Yeah,
but-
that's to me. It was like, oh, it's just a revenge movie.
It's just a revenge movie,
But
yeah.
the part that saved it for me was, but as the CIA is going, let's use this guy as our.
Well, he's a guided missile.
Yeah, he's a guy.
guided
It's like
missile.
like a drone. It's like
Yeah.
here, just set him out, let him go.
Yep, he doesn't work for it yet.
Yeah.
We're just setting him on the right path. He's
Exactly.
going to do the
My
work for
enemy
us.
of my
and
enemy
He
is my
worked
friend.
for this connect. You know,
Yeah.
he worked for. We're looking for balance, and
Right.
And I think, correct me. Well,
We're
I don't know if
looking
you
for
feel
control is what we
Well,
think we can have. We had it,
right.
like we had it with the Medellins, but the reason why we got rid of them is because we didn't have
Regain
it.
control.
Yeah, and I think, you know, ultimately what the movie is saying is like, no, we can't.
Yeah.
We're not
We
going to get
think
rid
we
of
can
this, but we
control
can
it.
try to at least
Yeah.
control it in
Yeah.
one way, shape, or form. So I don't, you know,
If you'd rather go with the devil you know than this one.
again, I'm not sure.
I don't think the second one was
like.
needed.
I think everything was set up so like you understand. And
Yeah.
again, it was a piece of dialogue. Like, I don't need a prequel to this. I don't need to see how Benicio del Toro became.
Right.
I don't need to see how Alejandro became Alejandro. I don't need to see his wife and child brutally
But
murdered.
that would be part of the sequel, probably.
Yeah,
You see the flashback.
But you don't. Again,
I don't.
think
I
it's
agree with you.
explained.
I don't
Yeah.
need it. I wouldn't
But
need a
I under-
sequel.
yeah.
But if I'm in the room, I go, okay, here's what we can work
Yeah.
with.
But it cheapens what I think was done so well and powerful in this movie.
Hollywood is never cheaping something.
No. I think they should just
I
let
agree.
a good thing be a good thing.
I get it.
But
This
they will.
isn't
They
something that-
probably will. And I'm sure you're right. They'll wait to see the numbers, and you know,
Yeah, this
it's in
doesn't-
its development stage anyway, so there's no harm, no
Yeah.
foul.
Sicario, the franchise.
Sicario 2.
Yeah, Sicario 12.
Sicario
Maybe
dos.
hit one with
Dos,
Sicario.
yeah. Sicario.
Sicario. There you
Then
go.
you'll really get a strong female.
Anyway, so, you know, and let's go back to, again, you know, this is, again, Denis Villeneuve, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He is not a person who makes happy-go-lucky
No,
movies
he doesn't.
like The Prisoners definitely isn't. I am so
Does
curious
anybody
to
see?
see.
And was it Enemy?
No, I heard that you really
No,
had to be in a
I
right frame of
didn't
mind to
see
see that.
that.
I haven't
This,
seen
this
it.
is actually the first time I've seen anything he's done.
Okay. I do strongly urge that you watch Prisoners because it is filmed very well. It's directed really well.
Just have to be
you get
ready
some-
to take a shower afterwards.
Yeah, it's just Jake again.
I
good
will say the same thing
performances.
about this. I thought it was shot incredibly well. I thought it was filmed
Yeah,
well. I thought it was
fantastic.
well acted. And really, my problems have all been script.
Yeah,
And
it's the same here.
Yeah.
There were narrative, but you
A
know,
little bit
I
of
liked
editing.
that he picked this movie because of the screenwriter's attention to research in doing this about the drug cartels, and he wanted to try to represent that world. I mean, and when you look at it too, we were really brought into that world, and what the. I love the juxtapositioning of when we're going into Juarez.
Yeah.
It's sort of like the scene Somewhat opens up on like just two men playing handball up against the wall. So like everyday life, and then like the parade of the black SUVs
then
like
even
driving
the
by.
end,
Well,
the
end
everyday
too.
life, there's still it's still continuing. That's what I love.
You know, and I appreciated. You know, I got the dichotomy. I got the juxtapositioning. I got that that's everyday life, horrible as it is. You know,
which is now not only is it right across the border, it's now infiltrating. So
right.
That's the point they're making.
What I loved about the narrative, actually, going off of all the research and whatnot, what I loved watching this was all the steps that they had to take to get to the final man that they really wanted. Like, going, interrogating the one man that they extracted.
The brother,
torture. Going to the bank and catching that woman for the receipts, going like from one person to the next.
You like the procedural aspect?
I like that because a lot of times it in a way reminded me of Zero Dark 30. And all the steps that they took to find Osama bin Laden. So it's that process of like, this is how serious it is and how many people are connected in this society, in this industry.
Yeah, I felt, you know what, there were flashes of Zero Dark that I was thinking of as well. That torture scene, again, that's another thing. And
interesting that they chose not to show anything.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, they left it up to your imagination, which even Denis Villeneuve says, I am not, he goes, I don't, I read an interview with him where he doesn't like, what's the word, not expose violence, but he doesn't like to
visually,
like, just not prophetize it. What's the
glorify
violence, glamorize it. And when you watch that scene, I even thought there was going to be blood going down the drain, but they just went down the drain.
Let's compare the two torture scenes. There's the one where you don't see anything, and then there's the second one with him in the squad car. What's his name? John Bernthal?
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
John Bernthal.
His character.
And he's getting tortured with a wet willy. It's like, I mean,
we missed
to see all the other stuff. So in a weird way, I go, that's the torture scene because it's almost played for laughs.
Yeah.
But the other one is off screen, and you just go, "Oh God!"
And John Bernthal,
because of the water, they waterboarded him. They did whatever.
All right. Do we want to?
What?
Can we go in? Do we want to go into the John Bernthal stuff?
Sure. Let's do this.
This is okay. This was my narrative misstep in this movie. What was the name of her partner? Reggie. Okay, yeah. Daniel Kaluuya. All right, Reggie. So, Reggie is like, hey,
you need to get laid.
She needed a drink. She
unwind.
she needed to unwind. It's like, hey, I know, all right, I'll take you out for a drink. They go out to a bar. It happens to be Ted. Ted is in the bar, played by John Bernthal. Already there. And all of a sudden, and it's been discussed, like, you need to get back up on the horse. You need somebody in your life. You need this.
You need to get laid,
and hey, oh wow, hey, this is Ted. Hey, Ted's here, and I know Ted. He's a good guy. He's a good friend.
He's played by John Bernthal.
Yeah, but
no, he's not.
And then Ted turns out to be a not good guy, and he's working for the cartel. He's working for the corrupt police.
Implausibility flag.
Yeah, and I'm like I was like, wow, that's how you.
I don't understand this at all.
And then
the only thing I go is they must have edited the rest of it out because it makes no sense.
Not only does it make no. Reggie doesn't even get questioned.
Well, she says it wasn't your fault, that kind of thing. And I'm going,
but wait a second.
Reggie should have been the emotional support to actually be there and watch her.
What? Yeah, but I mean, okay. So if Reggie is corrupt, I mean, because anybody else would have gone, Reggie, you took her to that bar. Yeah. You're the one who
introduced her to
it.
It's horrible.
And I sat there
horrible.
going,
There's no answer for it at all.
It's never brought up. Yeah. It's just like this huge coincidence that he happens to reach into his pocket and take out this rubber wristband. And I was going,
horrible.
It's horrible. That was to me.
Because here's the thing,
stuck out.
It was there was no. I'm going. How could they let that go? How could they? Because everything else is not everything else, but most things they're pretty smart about how they're doing. I'm going, really? You let that thing through? How could that's such a huge?
That was such a misstep.
My problem with the scene was that we're all led to believe that, Kate is the strong female protagonist. Like, she can hold her own. And the fact that, like, she realizes, yes, but the fact that she still was, in a way, that damsel in distress, that completely changed. It's like, she's not that strong character. She has to have, not to make this a gender issue, but, like, she has to have a man save her. And I was like, she's supposed to be strong in that way. I would have loved if it was her actually defending herself. Granted, she was being strangled, but, like, she was the one who overcame.
Yeah,
And it's like, and that's where, for me, that's where the character shift turned. We went from her not being the lead to Benicio del Toro to Alejandro.
Yeah, and that's why that whole scene.
I think they were going off the fact that, well, she's not a wolf. If she had been a wolf, she'd been able to do that.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that's
that was
why,
the whole
in terms of
character
their
change.
work, what they were trying to play, I'm trying to rationalize why they chose it that way. I can see it working in terms of character, because at that point in the movie, maybe she thought she was badass, but not enough, and then by the end of the movie, she'd grown into that, and then that might have been satisfying, but it doesn't. What didn't work for me was because here's the thing: I don't know it would have been perfect if she just got into the bar to get a drink and some guy hit on her, and we would have known who this was. We would have learned later who it was when she learned it, because you know what they did really well is we didn't learn what was up until she did.
Right.
So as the audience, we're never ahead, we're never behind. So that would have been a perfect way to do that. But to have it all so convenient that this guy just happens to be there because presumably somebody saw her picture in the bank and called their guy at the police, whatever it is, department, and says, hey, she's going to be at the Wild Pony. How I know that, I don't know. But
the
you be
Wild
there,
Pony. Yeah.
You be set before she comes in, and then you work it out so that you take her and say, what?
Yeah, there was
That didn't
too
make
much going on.
But if he had just
It didn't
showed
make-
up, because he had followed or whatever, we would have bought it.
I was like, what if it was just what if it was a cop who pulled her over for something?
Yeah.
Hey, your tags
Or-
are undone, and then things unravel. But
Or
this
if
was
he had
just
called
set up.
Reggie and
It's like,
said,
it's
"Hey,
just
listen,
too-
do you know anything?" And explain it
just
somehow,
too
but it just
set
was like,
up. It just
wow,
didn't
that's
work.
just great. And then the convenience of having the wristlet there, and I'm going, what, really?
Too easy.
To me, it would again made her character not as smart, because it would have been better if she just met this guy in a bar, and because what she had talked about with Reggie, they did hook up, and then they took her home, and then based on, because he was just trying to get information about what she knows. Based on the questions he asked, she would have sussed out, wait a minute, this is not normal. That would have made her smart. They still could have had the fight. She still could have, let's say she defended herself, but he used
sucker
something,
punches her,
sucker
right,
punches,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And then we could still have the moment where the hitman
Benicio,
saves her
right.
life.
Yeah.
You could still have all those
I
things.
agree.
Much
It was
easier,
just-
much smarter, much faster.
Very
Yeah,
ill-written.
I was just
felt the same way.
shocked.
I just
by
have
it.
a problem with John Bernthal. I personally don't. I personally don't like his acting, and the fact like he can't look in one direction for more than 2 seconds bothers me. And so seeing him on screen, like I recollect this while watching him, and I saw his character. I was like, oh no! I said that out loud in theater. I was like, oh no, nothing's gonna
No
come
good
from
can
his
come from his
character. I was like,
character.
he's gonna cause
This is-
problems, and sure enough,
yeah.
he did.
Well, that's a personal
That's
issue.
a personal,
but I have my own little personal issue,
subjective.
and it's a simple thing, but it just drove me crazy a little bit, because I'm going, why? Okay, they're going to Juarez, and they make this great deal out about the nice overhead shot where we're flying along with the cars going, and so there's there's 5 SUVs going into Mexico, and they go by everybody, right? They're everybody waiting to get into Mexico, and they somehow have their own lane, and they can zoom right through everything, but they can't figure out how to do it on the way back. They get thwarted by a broken down car.
Well,
You figured out how to do it the way you're going down.
There wasn't a broken down car.
I understand that, but it's a broken down car. How hard is that? I mean, if you know this is happening. Now, some people have said, well, to clear a lane, everybody knows where you're going to be, so you're setting up your own. They already know where you're going. That was the other point. Why are you crossing there where everybody knows you're crossing?
Why
you know
can't
how,
you fly them out?
Well, that's a point. You could have done helicopters or whatever, although that would have been a hell of a lot more noticeable, I guess, and maybe who knows.
Shoot them
but
down. Who knows?
You know you're gonna have trouble, and you know it's gonna be.
It's one
traffic.
of 2 points they said. They
Exactly.
made a point to say it's either going to happen here
or it's
there.
going to happen there.
Benicio says it's not going to happen here. It's mostly going to happen.
You know it's
going to
happen. Then why are you crossing there? It's a porous border.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
And you know where people cross like crazy, and you pick that one,
Yep.
and you don't bother to secure it. You don't bother to have a contingency.
Yep.
Well, granted,
Well,
for,
they had a contingency.
in terms of the
It's not a
movie, it's
gunfight.
great because then we have a great gunfight, which was, I thought, okay.
And
that
a
was
great
taut,
line of
intense, and
dialogue.
fun.
Like,
What's that?
boy, it was like, it's like, wow, this is going to be in all the El Paso papers
Yeah.
and blah, blah, blah. And it said, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Nope. They're
No,
not
it's
even
not.
going to
They're
know what
not-
happened.
Not even going to
you
make the
know,
paper.
Well, the
never
interesting
make the
thing
paper.
about the whole scene of the 5 SUVs going into Juarez, that was actually all VFX.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
You know, I
Like,
kind of was like, that's interesting.
They-
It
I
looked
mean,
a little different.
There were some shots where they actually had 5
Yeah.
cars all dressed in white, so
Right.
they can go back and post and replace
Paint
it
them
with
for whatever they want.
So that's how we saw all the SUVs passing all the traffic. I was like, cinematography looked amazing.
Yeah.
And it really just added how serious
thought it's
this
like-
extraction was.
You,
Like, we
you
saw
can
the
figure
whole
out how to get in there
process.
with no problem. You can't figure out how to get out. It's just, and you're
Yeah, it's
thwarted
like-
by a broken down car. Like you didn't figure that might happen. I mean,
Getting
it's like,
into
what?
I was so into
no.
the scene that I was
yeah.
like,
Getting
well,
into
and
it
again,
was-
I
it's an
forgave
intense
it
scene.
because it's a great scene when they're in the. It's like, oh my god, all those people, all those cars, and there's, it's like,
No,
It's
getting into
terrific.
Juarez was great. Like, where was all the police force like, getting them out?
That's my point.
Yeah.
It's like,
that
you
was,
could've-
like-
they could have got there.
But-
I
Where's
like
the heavy artillery then?
Because it would have been better if whatever forces are on the other side of the border that are wanting to get them did something that forced them to go the wrong way. That would have been much more interesting.
I agree. But do you want to hear
Because they
something?
already set it up.
You want to hear something sort of kind of cool about
What's that?
like that whole
Sure.
scene, right? So shooting at the border, and this is coming from Deakins and Villeneuve, shooting at the border in certain parts of Mexico posed problems. Especially when a shootout at the El Paso Juarez border was called for, impossible to do on location. So they created the Bridge of
Why?
Americas on a parking lot in Albuquerque.
Wow,
which
must
is
have been a
actually
huge parking lot, yeah.
Yeah, I
Blue
mean,
screen.
but yeah, I mean to me
screen.
that's
amazing.
really cool.
That's
like
great
they built a
filming.
Bridge of
Terrific.
America, seamlessly
That's
put
great.
in, and I found that to be like
Good for
that
them.
is really
There's a
cool.
lot
That's
of-
great. And it was a
screen.
good scene. It was fun and very.
It's a really
tense
great
thing, and
Yeah.
I loved how it's all that you just hear all the voices over the intercom on your left, and all that, and you're going. I thought it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Just
and-
thought you could have got to it better.
and they really captured that. The other cool thing was, and again, it was done, to effect, and for me it worked. I mean, when they're coming in, Mexico City is like an urban monster, and this is coming from Villeneuve, and he said that we had to make this another world, and I think from when you go in and when you saw those decapitated bodies
Yeah.
hanging down, I mean, I think that really, where the hell am I? Yet regular life
Yeah.
it continues to go on. I guess sort of a funny story. Emily Blunt was on Howard Stern talking about filming that scene. Well, if she had gotten Montezuma's revenge while filming, and she was filming while ill in that scene in particular. So if she looks a little pale and sweaty, it's
It
because
wasn't
she
acting.
was.
It was
It
good
wasn't
to do,
acting.
yeah.
It added.
So which it added to that to the character, to the scene. But again, another disturbing scene going into Juarez, and yet the extraction was rather simple. Like
Yeah.
when you think about it, the extraction
Well, he
itself
was
is
just
get the
he
guy
was
out.
in some
That's
sort
what
of
I'm saying,
prison. He was
like,
being held. It was
We
like,
watched
yeah,
them
it's
for
kinda-
5 minutes go into the city
Yeah.
Right.
with all that reinforcement.
Yeah.
Where was it when they left?
So it was a great. It was set up really well. The movie, that scene in the border is pretty suspenseful.
Yeah.
And then them just taking off afterwards, and then having Emily Blunt's character Kate,
Yeah.
just go, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Like what happened? I've
Well,
been way over my
what-
head.
I know,
doing?
but again, I'm going. Okay, yeah, I get like we shouldn't be pulling guns out in the middle of this, but she knows those guys are all armed.
Right.
Because she saw them and she heard
Oh,
them.
yeah.
And then she also heard that they gave them every ample opportunity not to engage.
Right.
And they did.
Yeah.
So and I'm going, what are you surprised at?
Yeah.
Why are you so shocked that happened?
think
I didn't get that. Doesn't make sense to me.
I think her mentality was that they're shooting in the open public with
Right.
regular civilians all around. So I think
I got
it
that
came
part,
from
but
that.
that's what I'm saying is,
They're going
I
off
don't think
book
it's.
now.
I don't necessarily agree with it, but they had to stop the threat.
Yeah.
Right.
It was right there, and had they not, who knows what those guys... They got on them and say, look, don't do it, don't do it. We're here, we've got the drop on you, just don't do it, because this is going to stop them from escalating it. And then they did. So it's not like anybody else was really engaged. I know it's dangerous, but what was the alternative? Don't do anything and let them brandish their weapons, and who knows who they're going to shoot?
Right.
Because they would have shot indiscriminately.
No, it was set up that it was clearly set up who the good guys were and who the bad guys were.
Well, I know, but in her mind, what were we doing? I go, well, they were... I get
trying to live.
And they're trying to stop from other people from getting killed. So I'm not exactly sure what you're all upset about. I mean, I get that. We went down there, and
that's out of it's illegal.
I think this is the moment where we should realize
that part.
Well, the extraction was illegal too.
Well, I know that, but why isn't that the argument?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Is that should have been the thing. We shouldn't have been down there.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here?
It's
a lot. It's bad enough that we put everybody's lives in jeopardy. Well, what the hell did we just do?
Yeah.
We just kidnapped somebody from a foreign
that.
country.
But
that to me wasn't. That's not where they really went
okay.
with the argument. And to me, the narrative problem I have with that is, while I like the fact that we as an audience got to find things out as our main character did, because that's interesting. She was a lot going, what are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah. Gosh, I don't know. What we shouldn't be. And I'm going, at what point does she take charge and start to figure it out herself rather than wait for everybody else to give her information?
What I'm saying is, like, she had all these questions that all the audience were thinking of, but she herself never really had the balls to actually ask someone. It was Reggie who was asking.
Reggie,
like, really?
Again,
you have
albeit
your friend ask all the questions.
Albeit,
You're the one who's more a part of this.
I find
but
his
your friend
friendship
comes
suspect.
in for 2 hours, and then he's the one asking.
Yeah, but I agree with you. It's like, why isn't she not pushing the energy?
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. Again, they just chose a different model in terms of structure, because you would structure that around your main character, and she gave that up. And not only that, she never figured anything out on her own. She always was. It just can't. She kept waiting. At some point, your lead usually takes over and says, "Okay, that's it. I'm driving this bus because I don't like where you're going."
Yeah.
And that didn't really occur. They chose not to. Instead, because clearly they just needed her to be the front person for their illegal CIA ops, and then for later to sign the thing. But it's usually your lead at some point realizes, okay, I'm being used, and I'm not going to let that happen. And then they start driving, and right at the point where she would want her to, where she goes down the tunnel, everybody's going this way, and she sees Alejandro go this way. Well, I'm going to follow him.
Right.
And then he shoots her. First of all, I don't know why she tells him to put the gun down. We know that everybody in this, including a law enforcement officer, might be a bandit, so treat them as such. Right. Here, your your colleague, supposedly, is apprehending a bandit who's clearly got stuff happening, and you decide to pull a gun?
I couldn't figure out...
Like, what?
Yeah, that I couldn't figure out.
Because he said Medellin, and you didn't know what Medellin meant.
Yeah, no.
What?
I couldn't figure that out.
Sense.
I couldn't figure that out. Like, either why she drew a gun on him other than drawing a gun to support him. My thing is that that character was given ample opportunity to say no, to say throughout the
her.
movie, her
Kate.
character,
or ample
Kate,
opportunities to shine herself.
Yeah, or to say, I don't know how she was going to shine, but I mean, she did shoot that one guy from the backseat of the car. Had she not gotten out, that could have been had she gotten out of the car, it could have ended up being a little bit of a different story. But this is your choice. Do you want to do this?
Yeah, it's voluntary.
And then again,
the second time,
she was asked hey, you can leave anytime you want, but
we're
she
not making any headway here. So
right, and she was given the opportunity to I don't know what I'm doing here, and it wasn't.
There was one moment where they're gonna go down south. And she's at the trunk of her car getting her flapjacks with Reggie. Right. And she says no. And he goes, look, let's just get at her. And she says, no, I have to find out where this is leading. I'm just going. And that was kind of a milquetoast attempt at trying to get her to actually drive any of the action. I just went, okay. And it just bothered me. They had such a great character going in. I mean, I loved the way they presented her. Like you said, she's first to the door, all that other stuff. And, and she has a moral center and everything but it never really gets fleshed out in any way. She never really has to rely on herself. It's like everything's happening and they're just feeding her. And
it'll be in the sequel. It'll be in the sequel.
That was my problem, because everyone has built up that she's the strong character, and then watching it, I was like, how strong really is she? And then, narrative.
I don't know. I liked her character. I liked her performance of her character.
I just wish they gave her more to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's
Completely agree.
coming out of this conversation. I think that's a fair assessment.
I mean, you go on a mission with all these Delta Forces guys and stuff like that, and she's the only one that gets shot.
and she gets taken down.
Granted, she hits him and
yeah.
everything like that, but she goes,
and then she gets taken down.
And it's like, oh my god.
No, but
and she almost gets choked out
yeah,
again.
I know, and I was going, please, why does?
It's also like the big climax scene didn't even have her in it.
No, it didn't.
Like,
because as soon as he
belonged to Benicio del Toro.
as soon as he goes to Mexico, it's his story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Till the end.
But again, to me, and that's when the movie becomes just a straightforward revenge movie.
Yeah,
like
me too.
he didn't remind me. And let's if we can, I want to talk a little bit about Benicio del Toro, his performance, and about this character as well. This is one of the things. Like as I'm watching this movie, I sort of kind of compared his character to Javier Bardem's Shagru.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I did as well.
And I was looking, and people are
It's the same
storyline.
storyline. You're no wolf, no country for old men. It's the same.
Right,
Yeah.
and but the one difference to me, like there's been a lot of talk about Benicio and perhaps getting a second Academy Award for this, and I'm like going, I don't see it. Like he doesn't do much other than be a presence. Where Javier Bardem's character, like that scene in the little dumpy convenience store where he's talking about the coin, like
Flip it.
that's an amazing intense scene. And Benicio had scenes where he was intense, but ultimately he was just on a mission for revenge, and they pointed him like he was a guided missile.
Right.
He was a great presence, don't get me wrong, and I thought he did a great job at that presence and being intimidating and the mystery around that character. But all in all, I don't think it's an Academy Award nominatable unless the Best Supporting Actor category is very light this year.
I do only because I think to me it's on a parallel with Javier's. It to me is the same thing.
Javier had more to do. I think.
I didn't experience it that way when I
followed
watched the movie. It
Javier
was
the
like,
whole time.
Yeah.
Whereas this, we followed one character and completely switched to someone
I
else.
just didn't think, I don't know. I didn't find that he had much to do other than be a presence. Where Javier Bardem, where Shagru was a presence, he was a great white shark, but at the same time he had to do. He had dialogue in like wherever he went, whether it was giving kids $100 or $200 to take off his shirt, or whether he was stalking somebody in a hotel, like there was. I don't know. He had more to do for me.
Yeah.
Benicio was very good
Yeah.
at it. But it was just an interesting character because ultimately it just turned into a revenge story.
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Which is
They
again, I was like,
they gave the key scenes
That's it,
to
really?
Alejandro.
yeah, they did. They did.
And then that was-
which again, it's just a different way of a movie. It's not ones that I prefer because I like my main character, but they switch main characters in a sense,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's like,
Like, who
okay,
are we
you're
following?
They
driving,
switched the
Yeah.
protagonist.
which is fine. Sometimes movies are very successful doing that. For me, this one wasn't, mostly because, and I think it could have been had they given Kate, Emily Blunt's character,
Right.
more to do, a bigger arc or something. Because I didn't really see we got the moral struggle but she had that from the beginning. It's not like, and I don't know what she learned about herself other than that self-preservation is more important than her code.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, can we talk about another character that sort of was? The character of Silvio.
Right.
Okay.
Silvio is the
He
law
was the-
enforcement officer across the
corrupt-
border
yeah.
who had the son and and wife.
Yeah, and we spent.
Ultimately gets killed.
Yeah, ultimately
Yeah.
gets killed, and I was like, we were spending a lot of time on this, and I wasn't. Maybe I'm naive. It was just like, why? Like he ends up being like, this could have been anyone.
Yeah.
Like this could have been any cop that came that they came across who was putting drugs in the back of the car, and ultimately, was it for the last shot?
Yeah. To let you know that this
Yeah.
is how it affects law enforcement agents down south of the border.
And their
every
families.
day, right.
Or
Yeah.
just like the everydays and their families.
I agree with you though. I thought it was out of balance. I thought you either should spend less time with them or more time, so we could see both sides of the border story, because we really didn't.
No.
And I'm going, but for me, they were stuck in the middle, and there was too much of it because I didn't need as much.
Right.
Or go the other route and give me more of it, so I could see not only I want to see how the cartels, how do they start, How did they become what they are? I mean, tell me that story.
Exactly.
But-
And it's
yeah.
he was just we spent time on it, and,
Yeah.
and it seemed
But
a little
again, I
bit,
was
it
like,
could have
is
been
it-
anybody.
I think
Oh,
it's-
here, roll the orange. It's like 5 angles on here. Kids rolling the orange.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
my
think
God.
it
Could've
was
been anything.
the two different perspectives of a family.
Right.
Because we had, the main guys, the main cartel dude's family, which was killed, which we
Right.
didn't have any,
We barely had any time with
conclusion
them.
to that. But also the continuation of just this is everyday life and this is a family now affected by a loss.
Do you think that the wife knew?
That he was dead?
Correct?
Or-
No, I think
yeah.
you knew that.
Yeah.
You think that the
Yeah.
wife knew?
Yeah, I think she knew, and I think she said, "This is what we have to do to
I
survive."
think the
and
son knew though.
Just don't get killed. And I'm sure that's that's what I
Right.
surmise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
she knew.
Yeah, it was just interesting that they focused as much as they did. and I was
Yeah,
like,
for me that was
yeah.
too much focus. But what I loved was when they were first showing him, going, "Okay, who is he?" Why I didn't.
I thought maybe he was
I loved the
ahead.
reveal that he had the cop car. Then I went, "Oh, he's a federale." I didn't know who he was or what I was seeing. I'm going, how does he fit in? I didn't even know I wasn't even sure if I was in Mexico at the time.
Yeah.
And,
And
then
it
until I saw that, and I
and
thought
it
that was a
tied
great
back
reveal.
to the line or like don't even trust the state police.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
don't
Yeah.
trust our own people. And it
Right.
was like, okay, there's that clear example. Don't trust your own
Mm-hmm.
local officer.
But I can't. I don't have a reason why they've spent as much time as they
Yeah.
did because for me it wasn't needed or effective. I thought
Yeah.
it was just distracting.
Yeah, it could have been any. It could have been anybody when they went through the tunnel
Yeah.
and
I do think Marissa had mentioned the last shot and how it just keeps happening and it's everyday life.
It's everyday
and
life,
stuff
yeah.
like that. I thought that was effective. I
Yeah.
thought I think that's the point he's making is that this is a huge problem and we're not even paying attention
Yep.
and we're trying to just let it go away.
And we hear the
sounds-
gunfire.
Let's just build a wall and forget it because that's what a lot of people want to do.
Or watch the fireworks every single night.
Watch the fireworks,
exactly.
Like, that was really
Do you like
effective.
fireworks shows? Yeah.
Yeah,
Every
and
night.
Not to mention that part of the reason why it's there is because we helped it.
Yeah.
Because our policies. But hey, let's not forget, let's not deal with that issue. Let's just build a wall, a bigger wall.
Yeah. So, and I did find that the end was interesting. The men playing handball while the SUVs were coming
Yeah.
into Juarez. The extraction. Again, this was. Even the flying scenes, I love the shots that where we were over the
Overheads,
landscape,
yeah.
and then we
Aerials.
saw the aerials in the shadow of the plane.
Yeah, sure.
I
Brilliant.
thought those were fantastic.
And
Again,
all this is happening, and you're just, miles away from the border.
yeah.
Yeah.
I just, and again, I'm going to bring up, Roger Deakins was the DP on this, and this is a guy that's worked with the Coen brothers like a bazillion times. This is a guy that before this, most recently, he had done James Bond Skyfall,
yeah.
which a huge James Bond fan, but I will go on record to say that the Skyfall is perhaps the most beautifully shot Bond movie that there is, and it was perfect for the 50th anniversary. It was just great.
The Shawshank.
Shawshank. He even DP'd How to Train Your Dragon. So he even DP's like animated stuff. This guy has not won an Academy Award.
You're kidding. Wow.
No.
That's a shocker.
What the hell? And I'm watching this movie.
He needs to be.
There are scenes, and he's used this to effect before. I believe in even Old Country for Old, No Country for Old Men. It is as if Roger Deakins can command lightning just so he can get the shot that he wants. I want lightning to strike now. Perfect. Thank you. And
Like
there
that
are
sunset.
shots of the skyline, and one of the most beautiful shots I felt was so when they were going into the tunnels, and it was before they started switching the camera to infrared and such, and it was just like the sunset, and you just saw the heads
Golden
going
hour.
down until they
Yeah.
disappeared
Yeah.
behind the hill.
Beautiful.
And
Pick a service,
Good.
pick a challenge.
I just thought it was
Army,
the
Navy,
Army.
Air Force, Marine.
No, but that
It
was
was
a
a
beautiful
great
shot. They're like
shot.
into darkness.
Yeah.
And I think the two key scenes that like visually look beautiful for me were when they're on the rooftop and they're looking at the fireworks. Also that sunset too. Mm-hmm. And then also when they're
sky.
going into the tunnel.
Yeah.
It's because this movie's so not black and white.
Right.
And those were the most colorful scenes.
Yeah, and obviously he works well with the Coen brothers. I think now, working with Denis, he has another great collaborator.
Yeah.
He has a great collaborator with Sam Mendes. this is a guy. Come on, folks. This guy, he needs.
Give him something.
He needs an award. He needs an Academy Award. He makes these gritty pictures pop.
You could feel the dust and everything.
And trust me, I know you haven't seen Prisoners, but this movie takes place around Thanksgiving, and I believe it's either Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. It's Thanksgiving time, so we're in that fall, winter, gray, and Deakins again, like just the way he captures this. He's just an amazing environmentalist, type of a DP. I can't wait to see what he does working with Denis Villeneuve on Blade Runner. It's going to look fantastic, I think.
We haven't talked about the ending of this at all. I want to talk about it right now. So how did you guys feel about the ending? What was your... I know you said whoa and wow.
Yeah.
But at the end of the movie, when he's got the gun on her chin saying, hey, sign, otherwise you're going to commit suicide.
Right.
So how the whole thing with her not being able to shoot at the end and the whole thing, what was your... Were you...
I was frustrated just with everything that she just experienced in the last 3 days. I wanted to have a win for her, and I felt like, again, Alejandro walked away with the upper hand and made me end with her character like she's not as strong as a woman that she should have been, or as a character in this film.
Well, and the argument is made is that she is a strong woman because she held on to her humanity by not shooting him. Would you agree with that argument?
I can agree with that, but also I was thinking, I was like, you just let the head of a Colombian cartel walk away. It's like this issue is still gonna happen.
But do you think she allowed him to go in not just because she thought somebody might kill her afterwards, but maybe she realized, look, as much as I despise what he's doing, we might need him to help. Do you think that was part of her thinking at all?
It could have been. I think it was more so that she just couldn't get up to that point. She's not
a wolf.
She's not that killer or wolf that they all made her out to, not be. It's just like, okay, yeah, she, in a way, was just like, just let her retain, her humanity.
Find some small town where semblance of law and order.
I looked at it, a little differently, and especially from... Denis Villeneuve has gone on record saying that he thinks that Kate's character at the end represents hope. He goes on, he says that the decision she makes at the end means that she will not follow their path. She will come back to her moral values. And for me, the last moment is very important. Even if you may feel that she's less strong, it's the opposite. For me, it was that you were talking earlier. And I think that's an interesting point. What you make is an interesting point. But I sort of kind of threw it back to that line that comes much earlier in the movie. It's after the extraction, and she's back in the conference room again with her boss, her original boss. And, she's like, I don't know what's going on here. There are no boundaries anymore. And he says, well, there are still boundaries. They've just been moved. The boundaries have moved now. And to me, I took that as not just being a throwaway line.
Right.
And when I tied it into the end, it was her coming to the realization of the boundaries just moved. Like the boundaries have moved now. If I shoot this guy, I become them. But now...
And I've moved my own boundary.
And I've moved my own boundary. But my eyes have opened up going... I do now sort of understand, because throughout the whole movie, she was being told by whether it was Josh Brolin or Alejandro that, you're going to you're not going to understand what's going on with your, you just sit here and watch and learn. And for me, that was her like going, if I take him out, it's not going to help the situation
and that
anything.
Doesn't make me any better than what they are.
I become them, but maybe... that's what's needed, because that's what the movie was essentially saying. We need these evils to combat this evil, and her boundary moved. She got that. Now, whether she gets out of Wolftown, who knows? But again, I don't need that told to me in a sequel. I liked how it ended because it leaves that mystery. It leaves that hanging in a sense, and it allows this is great discussion about an interpretation of an ending. You came up with something that, was different from mine. The director has his thoughts. What are your thoughts
On
the end?
the end,
Yeah.
Well, initially, I didn't think that, her not shooting him was because she realized I'm not going to move my moral compass just because you're a bad guy. But I also didn't think she did it out of strength. I didn't think she went, no, I'm going to maintain my moral compass. I'm not going to shoot you. Because, again, I just thought that's no different than how she was in the beginning. So I thought when she didn't pull the trigger, it was, well, there are a couple of things, because she had just been blackmailed, so to speak, to sign this thing, which she absolutely would not do, so that her moral compass is already moved anyway. Right. Of course, in the presence of whether or not you'll die or by not signing it, you can understand why you make the choice. But she's already made the choice, and she's already done that. So it was almost out of a reaction, rather than I'm going to stop him from doing evil in the world. It looked like it was in reaction to, I'm not going to let him get away with doing that to me, which is a different thing. It's not as altruistic and stuff like that. So for me, it felt too small. It didn't feel like the moral thing that I wanted her to experience, or because it didn't even. It could have been that she just realized, well, the arc for her could have been a negative one, in the sense that I'm not what I thought I was.
Right.
Which is okay. That's the perfect. I mean, the Godfather. I mean, he starts out being, I'm never going to be part of my family. I'm the Godfather. So it can still be a successful arc that way. For me, it was just it didn't work in terms of it being satisfying or fulfilling on either side of that coin.
Interesting.
I think in comparison with this end scene and then Alejandro's confrontation with the actual head of cartel,
Right.
that it felt the waiting time between him actually shooting someone. That I felt it was kind of the same, but maybe a beat longer for her. He allowed her more time to make a decision and live, compared to actually facing that family and just shooting them straight up.
And I didn't like the choices that the author and the director decided to put out, which is at the end scene, you look like such a frightened girl, or look like such a girl when you're frightened, or whatever it was. So in that mind, we either have somebody who's frightened or a wolf, a frightened little girl or a wolf. Those are her two options. In me, I'm looking at the scene and going, okay, those are the ones that they offered her. She's either a frightened little girl or she's a wolf.
Who has a gun underneath her chin.
And that was also a problem for me.
For me, the arc would have been something beyond what both of those choices were, and I didn't think they made that. I don't think they earned that arc.
And that was my problem for me, especially saying that line, this is the land of the wolves, and you're not a wolf, that whole thing. It diminished her. And we were supposed to build her up, but diminished her to,
I think the argument for them is that that's
someone...
what's hopeful about her, is that she's not going to be this wolf. She's not going to be that evil in the world.
See, I didn't walk away with
evil.
hope. I just walked away that she was the most weakest person when she was supposed to be the strongest.
See, and I took it, well, and again, let's start the end scene starting when, she realizes that Benicio's in the room, that Alejandro's in the room. Number one, I don't think there was a question as to whether or not he was going to pull the trigger. I did sort of kind of get...
He already shot her once. I don't think he'd have a problem.
And he just shot a family.
Well, I mean, I just don't think there would have been... he shot her in the, the Kevlar and such.
Right.
Don't ever pull a gun on me again, but I don't think there was a question that he would have. Now,
and I don't think it matters whether or not because what matters is whether or not she thought he would, and I think she for sure thought he would pull the trigger.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think so she's coerced into signing this.
Right.
She has just signed this, and you're right. So that comes across. All right, I've just signed this. My boundary was forced to move. Mm-hmm. I'm out. I have him dead to rights from my balcony.
Right.
What's that going to get me?
Mm-hmm.
What is that going to get me as a person or as a character? It's really nothing.
It's only going to stop him from killing other people, but it's going to put you on
somebody
the run.
else, and somebody else is just going to take his place.
Which is exactly kind of what we did with the Medellin cartel.
Right.
So in a sense, she's cutting the chain.
Yeah.
This felt very Godfather to me. Either your signature is going to be on
but
this.
That's why
or
it was
brains.
unsuccessful in that sense. Yeah, because I wanted her to find something more than just that. Mm-hmm. And it didn't have to be wrapped up in a bow. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying it's like, oh, okay, so she didn't shoot.
Yeah,
it.
this-
Okay.
It was just nah. It seemed very European in that sense, very French Canadian. That kind of.
What a coincidence! We
Okay.
happen to have a
Yeah.
French Canadian director.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't
lot
mind
of
the
ennui.
ending. I didn't mind the ending. It's sort of like, and again, though, to me, knowing that there's potential for a sequel there
Yeah.
that could potentially explain this, I don't need it. I don't like you left it off in such a way that it's a powerful enough ending that leads to this kind of a conversation. These are the conversations that I love talking about movies. This is one of the reasons why it's sharing these opinions. It's above and beyond. Oh, that's a great movie. Well, why is it great? Well, it was just great. It was action. But
don't you
this,
think-
like,
Yeah.
I like talking about
Yeah.
this stuff.
To a large degree, it also demonstrates how much humans are able to put up with and cope with and to allow. I mean, here all this stuff is happening, and I go, where's the outrage? Where's the protestations? I mean, back in Vietnam, we had protests all over the place.
Right.
But here, this is happening right outside. It's not, I'm not suggesting that people in Mexico should go protest because they'll just get, they'll end up on the bridge. I get that.
Right.
I get that. But I'm going. You would think there'd be more outrage from us, from everybody, that we're allowing this to happen, and that we're, in a sense, and I better pick my words carefully. We're not allowing it to happen, but it's happening.
But we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, well, or we don't even put our quote leaders' feet to the fire and say, look, come up with a plan, a strategy, something that we can implement, because what's happening right now, whatever we're doing right now, is not being very successful.
Right.
So, and I thought one of the best lines was, look, until we can get 20% of the people to stop doing this,
right?
it's going to be a thing. And what are we doing there?
Thank you for bringing that line up.
Because
Yeah.
I'm just saying, and for that, the movie, for me, is a recommendation, because, look,
Right.
it presents this thing. It doesn't really give you any answers. It
Right.
just presents it. And it's up to us to decide. And I love that the metaphor for, like I said, she's a metaphor for the audience as well as the America, larger context, because this is happening over there. We don't want to see it. And then it's opened, our eyes are opened up.
Right.
We're still not holding our so-called leaders to account
To
for
task.
this. It's
Yeah.
like, look, you guys are in charge of this. You guys, we put you in power to do something about this, and what are you doing? Nothing.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I found fascinating, is that all this is going on, but again, we know what's happening, we're aware, but the best we can do is just in a way restore order, even though it's still
Right.
Yeah, by
happening.
putting another cartel in
Yeah, but like
that we think we can control. How many
trying
times we
get
tried
the-
to do that?
Right.
Yeah, trying to get just their biggest problem is just trying to get the equilibrium.
But
out
that's
of
why
all
that line is so important. Is why
I
aren't we
agree.
spending our time trying to figure out why and how
Yeah.
to stop the demand for it?
Right.
Give people opportunity. Those kinds of
Yeah.
things. We'd probably spend a hell of a lot less money doing that than the stupid war.
Yeah, I agree, and you're right. That is one of those moments of this movie that makes it a recommend, regardless of these narrative issues that we've talked about. In most any other movies, these types of narrative issues would leave me saying that movie made me angry.
Yeah.
Because of A, B, C, D.
It did make me angry, but I'm still.
That narrative made me angry because it so sticks out.
Yeah.
And but there are so many other strengths within this movie that make it, like it makes it a recommend. It's a powerful, intense cop drama, especially if that's your thing. It's an adult movie. So, and I'm glad I'm glad people are liking it. I wish that I had read more reviews that talked about these narrative threads that was sort of kind of silly.
wish it had earned the reviews and
It should have earned like to me this isn't a 90. To me this is a solid, it's a solid B to B plus. For me, it's not a 93.
No,
it's not a 93% for me.
I'd give it a B.
One other thing,
And the thing that would have, for me, the things that would have made it an A were so simple. I mean,
agreed.
like how
Agreed.
could, this is so easy.
Easy. I know.
How did
Agreed.
somebody not
Agreed.
say
Catch
something? How did you let
Agreed.
this go through?
I couldn't agree with you
Yeah.
more.
I mean, that 93 could have been a 99 for those people. But,
Couldn't
for me, it was
agree
like, oh my
more.
God. I mean, it was almost a C to me because of those things. It just drove me crazy because it's such simple fixes.
I couldn't agree more. One other aspect of this movie that I want to talk about too. I am a soundtrack person.
Yeah.
the soundtrack to this movie. First off, really powerful, intense. I ain't gonna own it. I don't need to listen to it, but man, did it set up a mood, atmosphere, and scene from the opening shot.
Johansson?
Yeah, Johan Johansson. And, you know, he used a 65-piece orchestra with an emphasis on drums. And,
strings,
he wanted to have a kind of brooding brutality to it.
And it did.
Boy, didn't
for
it.
sure, yeah.
I mean,
it delivered, for sure.
It delivered, and it wasn't
And
like it
who else he did?
overcompensated.
He did Foxcatcher and the Theory of Everything. I went...
Yeah.
It always amazes me that they're, especially
Yeah,
the
he did
composers.
Prisoners as well.
But their resume always amazes me. It's like, wait a minute, you did those two movies?
Yeah, but also to go off of that, Johansson, one of the main tracks that you always heard in this movie was the low strings of the cello. That
Melancholia.
G note. Yeah.
Solo
It's like,
6-string bass, desert music. He did, but the one that I remember, the parts of the score that I remember are the pulsating ones that just set up what we opened up with. I mean, the opening shot of this movie, with the way like we see this task force coming in and that automatically set up like, oh boy, this is going to be tense.
Yeah, exactly.
And it wasn't overdone. It wasn't like it. The soundtrack never overcompensated. It didn't force me to feel this way. We've got high-powered rifles. We're going to break into a house. Literally drive it.
They broke it.
The scenes in the tunnels whenever we're doing these aerials. This definitely was where score was in perfect collaboration and in perfect sync with the movie. Again, this is not a soundtrack that I need to listen to on my way to anywhere.
Unless you're going to go drive your car
It's
through.
a scary soundtrack. It really is.
It's
but a great soundtrack to watch. And there are videos available of Johan Johansson composing this.
Composing?
And the whole process.
Conducting it. Really?
Yeah,
the whole
composing
thing?
and conducting. And there are shots of the orchestra actually being recorded and them actually executing and performing all these scores. And one of the very first shots is like cellos with that G note. Just, it's a great video to watch. I highly recommend it too.
It's a strong soundtrack that really fits this movie and adds to the tone, if not expands on it and deepens it more. Because this is at times a very unsettling movie.
Oh yeah, and the music certainly speaks.
Whether
to that.
or not there was violence taking place, I mean, it set up suspense. It's coming into the border. You just knew that there was something going down. It was good. It was very well done. Kept you very intense.
Do you feel the pacing matched the story though?
No, you had mentioned pacing at the beginning.
That was, for me, it was another area. I was like, there were just certain things I'm going, why are we spending so much time here? One, we already talked about Silvio, but also just in scenes, I thought we were lingering on scenes and shots for far too long, and I'm just going. And it wasn't adding to the tension for me. It was just, I'm waiting for the edit. And again, I'm not a guy that likes shortcut, chopped up movies. But for me, it didn't add to that. It just kind of lengthened it, and it didn't. It just.
I will say
dragged.
That Prisoners sort of kind of has a similar cadence, so to speak. And it's interesting too because I was thinking of Blade Runner. I mean, Ridley Scott is not a. He's not a fast-paced director. I mean, the original Blade Runner, it takes its time. You have a lot to take in. It stays on the scenery a lot, and
you spent a lot of money for that scenery.
Right. Well, but Alien too. When you think about
Alien,
there's a
very slow burn.
Slow burn to get to.
It's very effective.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it makes me wonder too. Like this is the type of. This seems very Ridley Scott-esque. I was thinking of Ridley Scott's, by all means, not a very good movie, but I was thinking of The Counselor, which was sort of kind of a drug-related movie as well, which is a slow-paced, overly dialogued, verbal diarrhea that made no sense. Monologues like that would make your head explode. But again... I was thinking of, okay, I sort of kind of get it. I see why they picked Denis to do Blade Runner, and I think it's in good hands. I wanna believe that it's in very good hands between him and Roger Deakins. So I didn't have a problem with the pace of this movie. In particular, I thought it was tense enough that I sort of welcomed sometimes where there was a little bit of downtime. Albeit when we went back to Silvio's family, I was like, why you? I want to go back. I want to find out what's going on here. But I don't know, pacing wise, that helped build other parts of the tension or intensity of this movie.
Yeah, there was one aspect that I thought was really great, and I learned after the fact how much visual effects that went into this film. Especially for the cinematography and filming, there were a lot of one of the companies, Oblique FX, the explosion at the beginning. That was when she's walking out the door. That was all blue screen, and they added the explosion in later. Some of the aerial shots, they added more houses to make it look more suburbia.
The aerial shot of the former
Arizona,
garden shed.
Yeah, that too. And the hanging bodies when they enter Juarez. That was all VFX.
Yeah.
But still scary to watch. Like, I would not want to look at that entering any city. But I thought that was so
Welcome
effective.
to Juarez.
Yeah, I thought that was so effective,
Yeah.
though. And
It's also great because Jeffrey Donovan even makes a point of it. His character is talking about how they're very smart and how they're very effective. These things, but they never really go into.
They never go.
Yeah. It's just implied.
Drops that matzo ball on the table.
Give us
and
some more of that, and they just.
yeah, it's implied. And then the highway scene when they're leaving with that traffic jam.
Yeah.
A lot of that was blue screen as well. They had a
They're
lot
on a bridge.
Yeah,
They're in
they
an
were
Arizona
on
mall.
a makeshift bridge, and they had cars,
Yeah.
but a lot of VFX, they added way more
Yeah.
cars to
Yeah.
make it look like it's going on for miles. This traffic
Like
jam.
trying to get across the
Yeah.
border back into the States. Let me ask this question too, just before we wrap up. You mentioned the explosion at the beginning when they.
Yeah.
Was that the only one that saw that coming?
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
saw that.
Did you
I was
like as soon as they
first
went
of
to
all-
that padlock and they're going,
I was
"Hey,
like,
we need a thing over here," I was like going.
But what bothered me is they literally have bomb dogs 50 feet from them. You're supposed to use those dogs. That's what
I
they're
thought they
there
were
for,
drug
to
dogs.
sniff out.
I didn't know
Again,
if they were
I
bomb
think it
dogs,
was-
but
No, but it's like two guys are going into a shed after
sniffers,
they
yeah.
just discovered all these bodies. You do not just open it up willy-nilly. I was like, you're supposed to have
And again,
some
I
tactical
think,
reason behind
yeah,
that.
and I think they were trying to, in some way, demonstrate that even though we're law enforcement, we weren't prepared for this kind of thing. And I'm going, yeah, but you just made them look so
Yeah.
dumb and ill-prepared.
They
Right.
just
But
went
and in a
into
way
it.
that doesn't feel to me to be believable, just because it fits your narrative. It doesn't. It doesn't feel. Doesn't look right. Doesn't sound right. Makes them go, okay.
yeah.
And it was
find all those bodies, and you're not thinking there might be a.
I saw it was more as a catalyst because it was now the actual agents have been affected. So maybe in a way they were trying to make it a little bit more personal. It's like, now we have to find out
or
who's
the
responsible
Chinese
for us.
we had never come across a bomb in a garden shed before, so
Right.
we'd
Yeah.
never thought to think
Yeah.
that. I mean, but I was
saw that.
as
I
soon as
saw
it
it.
happened, I went, don't do that. No, and,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
again,
like-
I'm just watching it in a movie, and if I'm just a layperson,
Yeah. As soon as
doesn't
they,
somebody go, hold on?
Yeah. Before we get the bolt cutters.
Yeah.
Let's dog come here.
There's
Something.
a clear shot of
Yeah.
of an officer or agent with a dog. I was
Yeah.
like, use him.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
That bothered me.
So it wasn't just me that as soon as they went on, I said,
So,
"Oh, that's going to
here it
explode."
comes.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go.
You knew.
Although I will say, even though I knew it was coming, it was very because we ended up following Kate's character. She was going out the door, so she was in the hallway kitchen, opens up the door, and then the blast blows her back into the house, and we see like the fire going down. I thought it was shot well.
Yeah.
Shot well.
Except I
Start
thought,
coming.
that Reggie was right near it because you kind of did the blocking on it.
Well,
He was right
he's
there. I'm going,
suspect
how did-
anyway.
Ears were
Yeah.
ringing.
So how the hell
Yeah.
did he get out? Okay.
But it
Because I
didn't-
thought that would have been the thing. Is like, oh, they're going to kill his partner. But no, they killed two police officers that you.
Yeah. I did like Reggie though. For as small as a role, he
I
did
found him
play
to be
his
very
part.
suspect after the ball scene.
He did play his part in a way helping ground Kate.
I liked him in the beginning, but then I thought he was misused.
Yeah.
Well, like we already pointed out, I thought it was didn't make any
Underutilized.
sense why he had to ask them and she couldn't ask them. I was like, why? What? That
Yeah.
didn't make any sense
Yeah.
to me. And then at some point, you just want him gone so she can be isolated even more. So I didn't like that he was with her at the other point. At that point, I wanted him saying, "Look, I'm not doing this."
Yeah.
Because usually you want to, again, if you're traditional structure, you would get rid of your allies because then she's on her own.
Yeah.
So why he was there at the tunnel, I don't
Emotional
know. I
support.
wanted him there. I wanted her alone with all those
he was
Delta
like
Force
the tough
guys.
guy. Although I did like that dialogue. They had just come back somewhere, and Reggie asked Kate, like, either how did it go down there, and James Brolin's character goes, "Oh, it went great." He goes, "I didn't ask you." He goes, "And yet I answered." I mean, but that sets up Josh Brolin's character, who again I thought he was really good in this movie.
He was.
Yeah, I thought he was
Wearing
really
his
good.
flip-flops and everything. It's like, what is this guy?
But he was
I think
strong. Like
he was-
I liked him.
He was frustrating. I get his purpose. He's there to shake the trees and stir up problems. But what was frustrating about his character is we purposely had no background story on him, so we weren't sure if
He's a
he was
spook.
good or bad.
He's a spook.
He
runs in the gray.
And I think too, all the we're shaking trees. I thought that was all subject. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew who they were targeting. They weren't targeting the brother. They wanted to get the brother to get the big target, and they didn't necessarily even want to get the right hand man. They wanted to go higher, so they have Alejandro. I mean, he says it. We just point and we point and shoot. We knew where he was going.
And then
this is
there's
all
a
the
question. I was like,
balance.
why did they even go find the tunnel? Was that just to get Benicio back into Mexico? I was like, why? I don't
That's the
know.
way I sort of kind of looked
It's like,
at
why?
it.
Like, you can't figure out a better way to get. I mean,
Well, it was
you
also
can get
like-
into it, and nobody's trying to get you to stay out of Mexico.
It was
just walk in.
Yeah.
I think it was a little bit more covert.
Yeah.
And again, it was all smoke and mirrors to say, hey, we found this tunnel,
Yeah,
we can close
exactly.
this up. But the ulterior motive was to get
Yeah.
the man on top,
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm just, it's like,
which they ended up doing.
so
They gave it to
hoping
Benicio.
that the Benicio would find somebody at the end of the tunnel that could take him. And I went,
Yeah. That too was a little, everything seemed to
took-
happen
Very
very
suspect.
coincidental.
Took him 2
yeah,
times
exactly.
to
It's
get
too-
to-
it's like,
Yeah.
man,
With the Silvio to the actual
Yeah.
dude to drive to the house.
Yeah.
It's like all these people they had to go through to get to
And
the
then
guy.
even that was, to me, Benicio at the house. I'm going. Granted, he had to go through a couple of guards, but it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
You think someone who runs a whole cartel business would have way more security on his own house.
Yeah, something. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty easy.
6 people he had to
Sounds
go
like-
through apparently.
That's-
They did the
is
body
Benicio
count.
that good, or was that is his security that bad?
It was James Bond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It was.
but he was a prosecutor.
Yes.
So, all right. Okay, we got to get out of here. So
Yeah.
let's talk about last thoughts. Anything else you want to add, Marisa?
I enjoyed this film. I think I would watch it again just
Mm-hmm.
to really process everything. I did enjoy this film. It was frustrating at some points, especially I was expecting a strong female character and I didn't really necessarily get that. But that doesn't denote like the whole movie itself. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this film for being as heavy and intense as it was.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is a strong cop drama, suspense thriller. It's an adult movie, which can be appreciated. I think it's handled well. I think its craft and making was all great aspects. Outside of I had some misgivings regarding the narrative. Fortunately, the movie was strong enough where I would still recommend. But I mean, I think those narrative issues need be addressed in other reviews. I'm glad that we were able to get it out in the open. And again, I really think twice about franchising Sicario, folks, because there really isn't, there's other product out there.
Yeah.
This
Make some more
movie is,
originals.
make it. This was
I think
that's the thing. This was an
why-
original movie.
I think that's why people are like, one of the reasons why it's like, oh, we've never seen anything like it.
Yeah,
I'd say-
this
It's
is
not
for
a
the most part
tentpole.
an
It's not a
original movie. It's
Yeah.
not a tentpole, regardless of some narrative missteps. Still a strong film.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I say let a good thing be a good thing.
Yep. John, what about?
That's our. I've recommended it because of the subject matter, and there's a lot of good things in it. I wouldn't fault anybody for not going to see it and waiting because
I would because the movie is so good and it's so fantastic to look at. You're not
Yeah.
going to get this experience You're not going to get it on your tablet. You're not going to get it on your TV, on your iPhone. This is regardless, it's intense, but it's a beautiful film to watch.
That wasn't a leverage enough point for me to make it, because it was like, I didn't find it that beautiful.
I don't know. Roger Deakins.
It's hard to make a desert look beautiful. So.
Yeah.
But
even the night shots.
That's mostly because that's not as interesting to me. For me, it's always the story that gets me. And if the story isn't there or doesn't work for me, then it's like the rest of it is like, okay. So, but I'm sure other people will enjoy it for other reasons.
Yeah. I mean, they're actually
it's
using...
not all black and white.
No. Or infrared, or like they were actually filming using those heat vision type cameras, and they had to... the footsteps.
Right.
Okay, I was like going, all right.
Can that really happen?
Can that... Well... yeah, it can.
I know, that's what I was thinking.
But it happens
in the movie,
for like 2 seconds.
Is that really exactly?
Like they had to, digitally put that.
Wait a minute. Exactly.
Footsteps in. But again, it looked
it was good.
fine.
Yeah.
So,
So.
but I get what you're saying.
But tell them where they can find us.
You can follow all of us here on the Popcorn Talk Network on Twitter at The Popcorn Talk. And then all of our other
Hosted
previous
shows,
previous dissections, featured dissections,
and other shows on Popcorn Talk Network. We've got DC News, Box Office Breakdown. We got just a ton of different kinds of
Jedi Alliance. It's all movies. Movies.
So go there for Popcorn Talk,
which is fantastic.
And tune in Anatomy of a Movie each time. Thanks very much for listening.
And you can support me at in support, not follow us. Please support me at DMovies1701.
Okay.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Serafini TV.
You can't follow me anywhere except here. So we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you. Bye, all.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.